So the first thing you have to do is grab you a flathead screwdriver and take this vent off right here. I've already loosened up the screw, so just take this, put it out of the way. The next thing I'll be doing is taking off this intake hose, and once I do that, I'll have a clear picture of the slave cylinder. So let's take care of that. To take this intake hose off, we've got two screws, one there and one there on the filter. Trying to do this with one hand isn't the easiest thing in the world, but it can be done. And this loosens up by pulling and tugging. And this one here, I've seen some with this pipe on it and some without, but mine has it, so you have to kind of twist down and pop that out of that hole right there. So taking a look down here, we can see our slave cylinder. What you can't see are the bolts that hold it in place, but I will show you that next. Okay, well, here's a better view. Right here is one of the bracket bolts that need to be taken out, and underneath here is another one of the bracket bolts. So you got one on the top and one on the bottom, and that's what holds your slave. So that's the bracket that holds your slave cylinder in position. So I'll get my wrenches and we'll start taking those out. Okay, now as we continue on in this video, I want to show you, if I can, look that I can. Oh, there we go. Shoot it down from this angle. There's the top bolt that you need to remove, and then there is the bottom bolt that you need to remove. So that is a 15 millimeter bolt, and we need to remove both of those before we can continue on in our operation here. So I've loosened them up already. To be really honest with you, I started soaking them with penetrating oil 2 days before I started removing it. And so before I went to work and after I'd get home from work, I would shoot them with either PB Blaster or this Freol, and they seem to work really good because now they're nice and loose, and I was able to remove this without damaging any bolts. So we'll get started on that. It's really helpful to have this tray from Harbor Freight. It's just a magnetic tray, but it keeps those bolts. Once you throw them in that tray, it holds on to them. Now we gotta get that bottom bolt out down there. And I don't think I can get that out while holding the camera. So I'm gonna have to do a little editing here. Okay, so I'll just show you the kind of the angle that I'm at. So there's the top of the slave cylinder. And there's the bolt underneath. And now I've taken that bottom bolt out, and as you can see, it just slides right off. Now, to replace the slave cylinder, you want to disconnect from the top, not the bottom. Spray this fitting right here with PB Blast or that Freol. You soak it really good for a day or two before you start wrenching on it, or you will break this, and you don't want to do that. So, but this is a brand new Rodney Dickman slave cylinder, so I'm not going to be replacing that. All I'm going to be doing is replacing the bracket. So I'm going to leave that connection together if I can. And as you can see, there's a bolt on either side that this heat shield is being held in by. All you really need to do is loosen up those two bolts. The bracket will come off, and then we'll put the new bracket on. I'll give you a quick peek at what I'm doing here. It's a lot easier when you take the whole slave cylinder off and put it in a vise, so it's not flopping around like it is for me. But I've unloosened those bolts, and as you can see, the heat shield just slides right off. Now, I'll take the time now to show you the condition. See all that white, chalky, that's from the old bracket. So that's why these have to be replaced. The original equipment, the original brackets, just not built for over 30 years plus. So that's why we're putting a new bracket on. Just wanted to show you that real quick. I can't stress to you how important it is to soak these with penetrating oil. All these bolts, they're really stuck on there. But if you use the penetrating oil and you're patient, they'll come right off. They did for me. Okay, so continuing on with our video, here's the new bracket that I got from Patrick Roof of Fiero fame, and he gave me this bracket. He didn't charge me a dime for it. Just a fellow Fiero enthusiast, fan, whatnot, owner. And I really appreciate him giving that to me. And he said he got it from the Fiero store. And so he's just helping a brother out. So finishing up, taking off these nuts. They are 13 millimeters. So if you're wondering, use this ratchet, and that extension is way longer than I needed, but that's what I use, a 13 millimeter to loosen up these bolts here. So I got them just really loose. So just taking them off, putting them in my little tray. Okay, so as you see, this one just slides right off. There's the old one and the new one. Side by side comparison, they're pretty similar. Once you've got that on, just put your bolts on and don't forget to put your heat shield on. And now, through the magic of television, you can see that I have the slave cylinder bolted into the new bracket with the heat shield on. And it's a whole lot easier if you take the whole slave cylinder out and put it in a vise and prepare it with the heat shield on and everything in the bracket before you put that bottom hose back on. But I didn't want to re-bleed the system, so I did it on the car. Not the easiest, but I got her done. Now, be careful when you're putting this back together. You see the square with the slot in it? Try and point it out to you. Right there. That little spot right in there. It's a little groove notch there. That's where the end of your slave cylinder pin is going to go into that slot. So that's what I'm going to be doing, lining that up and then bolting it up. Okay, now you see that I've got the top bolt in loosely and the bottom one in loosely. If you keep them loose, you can line it up just right. If you tighten this one down all the way, then you may be off on the bottom. So save yourself some grief and keep the top one loose, then put the bottom one in, and then you can take your 15mm socket and tighten it all down. Now, as you can see, I've got it all tightened up and buttoned up. Heat shield is in place. The bottom hoses, I never took it off, but if you're replacing the slave cylinder, you'll have to put that on. And then bleed the system. I bled the system several different ways. What seemed to work best for me is my driveway is on a slant, and so I put the car out in the driveway on an incline, and then I raised the driver's side up very high as my jack would go, and then I cracked this bleeder valve with a hose on it going into a clean glass jar, and I just let gravity do its thing, and gravity bled this, and that worked best for me. I mean, I've been given all kinds of helpful hints about pressure systems and vacuum systems and pushing it through backwards and pulling it through forwards, but gravity seemed to do the best for me, and it worked out good. And I'm not going to belabor you by showing you how to put this intake hose back on. I think if you have a Fiero, you know how to do that by now. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks.